Greetings and welcome back to Read, Rant, and Review, where we are going to talk about a book about video gaming, which you might actually want to read. That book? Ready Player One. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. Those of you who watch my show know that we're more about analyzing books more than deciding whether you should read them or not, and as such, I usually include at least some spoilers in my videos. However, today, for some reason, I don't even know, I have split this review up into a non-spoiler section and a spoiler section. So, the first part will be a non-spoiler section where there may be just like teeny tiny minor ones, but nothing that you could, really bother you. And then we'll talk more in depth about it after that, about some stuff that's spoilery. So, yeah. For my Let's Read the Back segment, we're going to just read the inner cover of my copy. My cat is up there, by the way, trying to destroy things. So if large heavy things fall on my head, you'll know why. The year is 2044. The real world is an ugly place. Like most of humanity, Wade Watts escapes his grim surroundings by spending his waking hours jacked into the Oasis, a sprawling virtual utopia that lets you be anything you want to be, a place where you can live and play and fall in love on any of 1,000 planets. And like most of humanity, Wade dreams of being the one to discover the ultimate lottery ticket that lies concealed within this virtual world. For somewhere inside this giant networked playground, Oasis creator James Halliday has hidden a series of fiendish puzzles that will yield a massive fortune and remarkable power to whoever can unlock them. For years, millions have struggled fruitlessly to attain this prize, knowing only that Halliday's riddles are based on the pop culture he loved, that of the late 20th century. For years, millions have found in this quest another means of escape, retreating into happy, obsessive study of Halliday's icons. Like many of his contemporaries, Wade is as comfortable debating the finer points of John Hughes' oeuvre, playing Pac-Man or reciting Devo lyrics as he is scrounging power to run his Oasis rig. And then Wade stumbles upon the first puzzle. Suddenly the world is watching and thousands of competitors join the hunt, among them certain powerful players who are willing to commit very real murder to beat Wade to his prize. Now the only way for Wade to survive and preserve everything he knows is to win. But to do so, he may have to leave behind his oh-so-perfect virtual existence and face up to life and love in the real world he's always been so desperate to escape. Okay, so that was an interesting, if extremely long-winded cover blurb, and it's not entirely accurate. But let's just talk about the book, shall we? So the non-spoiler section. First of all, you should know that I have now read this book twice. The first time was a while ago in the novel, hardcover version. This time I decided to get the book on CD version, and I just was delighted to discover that it was read by none other than King of the Nerds himself, Will Wheaton. That was just a great little thing for me. A lot of this book is about 80s movie and gaming nostalgia. And I feel like that was kind of really clever on the author's part, because if you make your book about something in the past, even though the book itself is set in the future, if you make most of your book about something in the past, your book is gonna age better. In this book, the author does actually use real-life gaming terms, which is so nice, it's so refreshing. However, he has to explain them, and he explains them kind of ad nauseum. Sometimes. It's like, okay, we get it. We know what an NPC is. Stop. In general, this book holds your hand just a little bit too much with the pop culture stuff. Like, he has to describe every single movie or video game that's referenced in the book, and that gets a little old after a while. Maybe leave a few of them for your audience to go check out on their own. And hey, guess what? This isn't a freaking Chosen One story. Oh my gosh, that is so nice. He is just a guy who happens to be the one who's gonna win the day. There's no prophecy. He's not the special. It's great. Inside the gaming world is really well done and entertaining to read about. Outside the gaming world is a little bit confusing at times. It's a good thing the book doesn't spend much time out there, because I have so many questions. Never gonna get answered. This book does have some discussion of why people choose an online gaming world over the real world. And I kind of wish it had a little bit more. It doesn't have like a ton, it doesn't go really in depth into that. Although then again, that isn't really what this story is about. But it is cool to hear that sort of side being almost more defended, because so often, you know, if you're a gamer, you're used to people being like, get out into the real world, what are you doing escaping into games? And this book kind of does show you that sometimes the real world is a terrible place and you just need to go somewhere where you can be yourself. And sometimes the gaming world is the only place where that can happen. The main character is a little bit cardboardy at times. He honestly takes a backseat to a lot of the 80s pop culture, and in fact, the sort of overarching story isn't even necessarily really about him, if that makes any sense. He's still an entertaining character though. He can be a little bit snarky. He's kind of a fun everyman kind of character. He at least gets to be corrugated cardboard. The other characters are also quite entertaining, especially the best friend character. The female love interest is okay. She's not great, but you know, she's passable. I actually enjoyed rereading this book because knowing the ending as I did, I could catch little hints and clues that I didn't catch before. So I would say that the rereadability of this book is medium. Definitely not low, so medium to high. However, at times, even without the rereading, this book can be kind of predictable. Every now and then, the main character is just good at everything, and that gets annoying. Like, you want him to fail sometimes, and he kind of just succeeds at everything. And you are going to be required to suspend your disbelief. Like, beyond the disbelief that you suspend in the gaming world, there are some situations that he gets himself out of where you just have to kind of go, yeah, sure, okay, he got out of that. The ending was good, if a little bit Charlie and the Chocolate Factory-like, but it was nice to kind of have just an ending that wraps things up instead of the usual sequel bait that we always get in books nowadays. It's nice, it's so nice to just read a book that's not teasing you for the sequel or just flat out leaving you with a whole cliffhanger. So before we go into spoiler talk, I want to leave you with a few other things that are kind of like in this same genre that you might be interested in. Most of them are visual. There's an anime, Sword Art Online, which might entertain you. I have a review of it. It's an older review, so it only covers the first 2 seasons. Go check that out if you're interested. Also, the anime movie called Summer Wars was quite entertaining. I watched that recently, kind of in the same vein. There's a show called Video Game High School that I haven't actually watched, but that might be interesting. Check it out and tell me if you like it. And of course, the classic, and I really can't talk about a book that talks about the 80s without mentioning Tron. Tron is one of my favorite movies. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it. It is glorious. Okay, let's talk spoilers. So, you know that sometimes I will notice if an author, or maybe it's just a character, has a really strong dislike for, like, Christianity and organized religion. This book has that. Something I just never get tired of. The thing I wonder, though, is how much of it is the character and how much of it is the author. Considering this is the author's first book, probably it's his opinion less than the character's opinion, but you never know. Our main character has dead parents. Dead parents, dead parents. Because you can't be a hero unless your parents are, you know what I mean? Here's a scary thought. Their world is like post-apocalyptic in that it is essentially taken to the extreme of what we think is going to happen now with climate change and with like recessions and all this stuff. And so their planet is a horrible place. And he doesn't really even remember a world where there was like grass and trees and where like you could drive your car to the store and like stuff like that. But his mom does, and she lived in a generation where they had it at the beginning of their lives, and by the end they didn't have it. So it was that world, that life that we like right now was taken away from them, and I have the horrifying feeling that I am in that generation. So, a little bit more on that message of video gaming and how it's good. In this book, it definitely comes down on the side of video gaming as a good thing, obviously. There is a little bit of exploration how video gaming too much can be bad for your health and you should avoid it, but at the same time, this book says, look, there's a shitty world out there and this is the only place where you can experience, joy, because out there is just like terrible and polluted and horrible and death. I understand that. Like, it even talks about like video games as a way to save a life. Because like if you got nothing else to live for, maybe the video games give you something to live for. And I know some people, maybe a lot of people out there are going, well, that's a shitty reason to live. But if you're not killing yourself, I think that still points. Still good. Also, in this video game world, they use games to teach. He goes to school inside of the game. His avatar has to go to school. And it's cool to see the video game world being used to help everyone get an education, because kids are given free equipment so they can go to school using this world. That's awesome. Kids everywhere. I like that the main character really starts out on a very low level. He really is an everyman. His character is super poor because he's super poor in real life. And he's level 3, and he can't level up because he can't even afford to leave the school planet that his avatar is on. And I like that it's really like a struggle. He's gonna have to like try to succeed instead of just being like, hello, the prophecy says I'm going to win. Another thing about the schools, things the schools can do, the teachers are happier because, they don't have to deal with all the crappy kids so much of the time. And they can do things like take a field trip to the moon. Who wouldn't want that? So a little bit of nerdiness here from me. We had a Commodore 64 computer when I was a kid, and I played a lot of the games described in this book. Like Joust, Pac-Man, Dig Dug. It is kind of, like I said, before how I said he was good at everything? It is kind of like really lucky that he's good at the games that he encounters, because a lot of the challenges that he faces to get this Easter egg involve him winning at old arcade games, and he happens to just play ones that he's just good at. So to prove that the bad guys are evil, because the main character is living with his aunt whom he doesn't like, which is really handy. To prove that the bad guys are evil, they kill his aunt and a whole bunch of other people in like his trailer park. But it's handy because he doesn't give a shit about any of them, so it proves the bad guys are really evil, and at the same time, doesn't do anything to affect our main character's emotional state. That's handy. Boring. Partway through the book, our main character encounters these other two really cool characters who are Japanese. And I can't figure out if they're really, really stereotypical, with all of that honor, bowing, they bow like 80 million times. All that crap because of the game and the way that, the 80s stereotypical Japanese characters, and so they're behaving that way to fit with that world, or if the author really thought the Japanese people are like that. I like that this book favors anonymity on the web. Nobody knows who you are really in real life, and I kind of dig that. So when our main character finally gets to flirt with his girl, he flat out tells her that he has been cyber stalking her for a while, and she doesn't even bat an eye. Like, I was like, that would have set off some alarm bells for me. Then like, you've been doing what? No! I don't find that cute and endearing. That's creepy, sir. So at a certain point in the story, our main character has succeeded at the first part of his quest, and he has become sort of famous. And as a result, people kind of want to take him down. And if your avatar is killed, you have to start over with a completely new one. So it behooves him to not die. And so he's going on like these grinding missions to level up his avatar and get more money and so he can succeed. And nobody's trying to kill him. Like, the book sets up that he's like kind of in danger, but then it just describes that he went to all these places and killed all these monsters and nobody tries to kill him? What? Okay. It would have been cool. We could have had an action sequence where he has to get away from some dude trying to kill him. Once he gets to be higher level, and then later he buys himself some really cool gear to play the game with, it becomes a lot less interesting because he's no longer an everyman. He's like got the best of everything, and that's really kind of actually boring to read about. I would have liked to hear about him succeeding with just his crappy gear. I mean, he could have leveled up his character, but does he really need to eventually have like the full body suit and that multi-directional treadmill and stuff? Plus, it makes the author waste even more time describing his gear. Ugh. This author has a clear hard-on for lists and describing things. There's a lot of tell and not nearly enough show, and it saddens me. The author of this book also, probably because he's newer, really does like to qualify things. Like, he'll be like, he was slightly afraid, and he'll use that like way too much. And as a writer, you learn that as much as possible, your character should just feel things. Like, don't make him slightly afraid. Is he afraid or is he not afraid? He's afraid, okay, he's afraid. Things like slightly and very and that kind of thing should be only used in sparing circumstances. I'm a little confused by copyright laws in the future. Apparently, at least things from the 80s, so maybe it's just old stuff like that. It's just free reign for anyone. Anyone can download for free any movie, any game, any literature that they want, like from that area. I don't know how it is with other stuff. Like, I don't know how it is with modern stuff because he never does anything with the modern media. It's all 80s stuff. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's just old enough to be free? I don't know. I have a hard time believing that every single piece of pop culture from the 80s is just free for everyone, but maybe it is. So the Jade Key, he gets a clue that talks about a test, take the test, and he's like, oh no, I'm baffled, and he goes into this funk, and I'm sitting here going, dude, it says test. I would run it past every test in the book, the Kobayashi Maru, a math test from a movie, just like every test I could think of. I would do that. I wouldn't be like, oh no, I can't figure it out. Damn. Then when he gets to the Jade Gate, the challenge there is really kind of extremely random, and it bothered me how random it was. But then he got a giant robot, and I was like, all is forgiven. Again, this annoyed me. The main character is too good at shit all the time. Like, why the fuck can he play a guitar? It's just, he can just play a guitar when he needs to. And I was like, no, you do not just get to say, oh yeah, he learned guitar a while ago. Show us, don't tell us everything about this character. Let him muddle through a few things. Let him have to use a computer program and slowly pick his way through the guitar song. Why is he good at everything? We keep finding out his talents right when he needs them. And that's sloppy writing, my friends. Also, he always happens to have exactly what he needs for any situation he's in. And the author's always like, oh yeah, he had that. He grabbed it earlier, just in case. There's really only one item that we actually see him acquire. And I really love that sequence because you don't really, you're like, he just got that thing. I know it's going to come up later, but I have no idea what it's for, and it's going to be awesome. We need more of that stuff, instead of always being like, oh yeah, he just happened to have this, because he needed it right now. And he got it earlier when you weren't around when he got that, but he has it now. At one point he becomes MacGyver and escapes from a situation, and you just kind of have to go with it. Roll with the 80s style. He's getting out of a situation, just let him. Just enjoy the ride. So, and of course at the end, all of the characters, our three main characters, get to meet each other, and there are reveals about who they are in real life. And the one with the best friend is amazing, and I love who the best friend character turned out to be. And I don't know why I'm sparing you that spoiler, because this is spoiler talk. If you've read the book, you know the best friend character turns out to be a really awesome chick. Bam. And it's done amazingly, and it's great to see that the author goes, talks about how friendships forged online can be true friendships and can withstand things like finding out that your best friend, who you always thought was a man, is actually a woman. Finding that out, and feeling like, oh, you lied to me this whole time about who you were, but then realizing, no, they didn't lie to you about who they fundamentally were, and you became their best friend because you loved their personality, and that's what you saw. And I love that in this book, that you get to understand that, yeah, friendships forged online are actually real friendships too. However, the reveal of the girl character, I just was unimpressed, because it turned out that the only thing about her was that she had, this jelly stain, birthmark on half of her face that she was embarrassed about. But she's going on about it like, oh, I'm so ugly, don't look at me, I'm Phantom of the Opera here. And I would have really liked it if the main character, I wanted her to, like, be in a wheelchair. And not just like an ordinary gorgeous person in a wheelchair, but like somebody who's been in a wheelchair their whole life and who is, like, has no, like, very little muscle tone, at least in their legs as a result, and isn't classically pretty except for with one, like, face flaw that isn't really a proper flaw. I would have loved that. However, I do understand with the great, awesome reveal of who the best friend character is that you didn't want to do it too much, and it might have been too much to also have the romantic interest be that way. But I hated that she was so emo about it, that she's just like, oh, you wouldn't like me in real life, I'm hideous. So they go eventually to Og, who's this awesome wizard guy. They go to his mansion to finish up playing the game and to win the game. And seeing Og's, like, lifestyle of opulence, I felt actually kind of mad at him, because I knew how everyone else that we got to see in this book was living. And this guy's, like, living in a mansion on a hill with a beautiful view and, like, trees and flowers and stuff. And I was like, you asshole! Share that shit! Instead of hoarding it up there in your little hermit hole. There are people who've never seen trees! Okay, so there are some very awesome Guardian of the Galaxy type moments at the end of this. It's very 80s, and you hear the music pounding in your head, and you're like, yeah! Yeah! Get him! Power of friendship! Wonder Twins. I don't know. So of course, in the end, the main character wins the day and happiness abounds, and he's going to do right with the video game world, hurrah, instead of the evil guy. And then he goes out to meet the girl, and he gets the perfect, like, congratulations, hero, you have won. Here is a woman for you sequence. And I wish that at least Artemis is the name of the girl. I wish that she had at least been a little upset for a little amount of time that she didn't get to win. Because she wanted to win. She was there. She was in it to win it. She was there to win the game, and even though in the end she was like, okay, I'll help you win, you can do this, she still seemed upset about it at that point. But then when he goes to her in the garden or whatever, she's like, kiss me. And it's like, you're allowed to be upset, honey, that you didn't win. That was your life's work right there, and somebody else took that from you, even if he is somebody else that you think is hot. I have to say, during the end part, when he was doing that, he had to go through the entire Monty Python and the Holy Grail sequence. Will Wheaton, reading this, was having way too much fun reading those lines. It was so, I was laughing hysterically at him and his performance. It was the best. And I discovered that the main character's initials are WoW, which I wonder if that is a World of Warcraft reference, and it probably is. So that was Ready Player One. Was it enjoyable? Yeah, it was still enjoyable a second time. There were definitely, it's a flawed book. It is not a perfect book. It is very flawed. There's a lot of telling instead of showing. There's descriptions ad nauseum, and the character is just randomly good at stuff. But if you are into, and this is why I love it so much, if you are into 80s culture and pop culture, and if you are into video games, you'll probably still like this book. Like, I still enjoy the hell out of it, because I can get the references, I love all the movies, I love all the old games, so it's great for me. It's like nostalgia-ish. I'm too young for it to be proper nostalgia, but nostalgia-y, the book. So I don't think that this is a book for everyone, and it's not even a book for every gamer. But I would say definitely check it out if you are a gamer, and especially check it out if you are a fan of 80s pop culture. So, that is all for now, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you next time. Peace out.